What's going on, everyone? Nick from Comic Culture here. Time for Nick at Night, my weekly comic book review show. Let's get into the books I read this week. It's a weird fifth Wednesday, not a whole lot of books, but we're going to go through them anyway. Starting over in DC, we have Poison Ivy Swamp Thing Feral Trees, issue number 1, a little one-shot here in the All-In universe. So this one got my particular attention because G. Willow Wilson's on this one. She's been writing Poison Ivy for a long time, but we have Perkins and Spicer on the art team here, which is very reminiscent to Ram V's run on Swamp Thing that I really enjoyed, and you get all of that back inside of this book. Incredible layouts, coloring, and art inside of here. Really, really cool. Interesting story too. There is a way that Swamp Thing and Poison Ivy are tied together. You don't really have to go that far to figure that out. There's some kind of connection to the green that they have, obviously, right? So there's a calling. Something's calling to them from this forest within Gotham City, and they are drawn to it. And they're trying to figure out what exactly is going on. There's this evil force there that is pulling them in, and we explore a little bit more about what this evil force is. It's a certain individual. It's somebody that has a similar power to them, but their upbringing, their whatever, their influences in life set them on a different path, a kind of a chaotic path, and it led to their demise in here. So the two of them are teaming up, trying to navigate this weird environment and use their powers the best they can to figure out what is going on. And, ultimately they try to do their best for this person. So it's really emotional. It's really deep. There's a lot of cool conversations between Swamp Thing and Poison Ivy, and there's some other characters too that pop up in here, but the artwork is incredible. The dialogue is great. I like the story. I like the idea of there's superpowered people in this universe that we don't know about, but because of their path, they're put in a different position, and they're never fully realized because of that. So I like that message inside of here. I think it's a cool perspective to have inside this book. So really incredible artwork. I really dug the story. Let me know if you read it. Let's go over to Marvel real quick. We have Wolverine Revenge issue number 3. Hickman and Capullo on this one. And I kind of liked number 1. Number 2 was a little bit better, I thought, although it had some moments into it which I thought were a little bit ridiculous. We get the idea of this run right now. Basically, Wolverine was betrayed. There was a bunch of guys that did it to him, and so he's going out on his revenge mission. This one, he's taking out a few different people, whether it's a longtime nemesis or a person that he's teamed up with in the past, or somebody he used to once call his brother. There's some pretty cool moments in here. There's these little weird story beats, not weird, but interesting story beats in here where he's digging the grave of the person he's about to confront next. And it's just very ominous, and it leads to some pretty cool initial conversations. These are all people that he worked with for the most part in the past or were on teams with. But now because they did this unspeakable thing to the world and to his teammates in general, it's all over at this point. The artwork continues to be pretty strong in this book as well. I'm not exactly sure where this is going to go. It's a revenge book, so ultimately he's going to take out everybody, I suppose, and maybe even himself in the process. That's probably where this is going to go, but maybe Hickman can surprise us. Let me know if you read issue number 3, though, down below. Next up, we have Ultimate X-Men issue number 8. We have Peach Momoko on this one, Ian Bertram on this cover, so that's why I picked this up. Now, I've said it before many different times that I've read this book and reviewed it that I don't quite understand exactly what is going on in here. There's a cult right now, the Children of the Atom kind of a thing, and they are manipulating their youth. There's a bunch of teen suicides. There's a teacher that took his own life as well. We're putting together this team, even though I don't really quite understand the relationships. I'm forgetting who is who and what is actually going on. Now we're in this hospital where they're doing a bunch of experiments on people, disposing bodies in a really interesting way. And so I just don't really understand what is happening in here. There are moments, panels, pages, whatever, where they are displayed. And I'm what was that all about? Where did that come from? Who was that? When did we get introduced to that character? Or what does this even matter to the story? I have too many of those moments inside this book. I think there's a core theme in this book that is interesting, but I don't think the execution around it, the storytelling beats, are really doing it for me personally. But we got awesome Peach Momoko interior artwork, so that's really cool. We get to see armor occasionally in this book, even though that's the main character inside the story, or it has been so far. But like I said, there's far too many moments in this book where they're showing a character doing something in a scene, and I'm I don't even remember being introduced to that character, or even if we were, I don't remember the relationship. So all that's just a big discouraging thing for me when I'm reading this book. So I don't know how much further I'm going to be reading it, to be honest with you, but I might stick around just to see where it ends up going and how it's tied into the Ultimate Universe in general. We're getting that vibe in the other books right now. They're in this universe, and we kind of understand that because there's characters in it. But this one seems very much on its own little island, and I don't quite know why. So let me know if you're reading this one. Let me know your thoughts. Correct me if I'm wrong down below, of course. Let me know if you're reading it, though. Next up from Dark Horse Comics, we have Magic Order. This is volume number 5, issue number 2. So I didn't read some of the other volumes, but I did read volume 1 and 2. I did read issue number 1, and I really liked it because it's playing with that magic idea a little bit more and how it can be kind of like a reality warping in a way. Cordelia, who's like one of the only surviving members of the Magic Order, she used to run it. Her family's entrenched in this whole lore. She right now is being abducted and essentially mind wiped to be in a body of somebody else's, waking up in a hospital, and she's being told like your husband's outside or your parents or whoever, and you're not this person, you're somebody else, and your husband does this for a living and you do this for a living. But she has memories of her past life, and this is like a whole issue of her going to therapy and trying to be convinced of like, you're hallucinating this previous life. But she has this like feeling inside of her that something has happened. Somebody has done something to her and has put her in this spell essentially, but has created a whole reality around her, which is really cool, I think. Of course, there is moments where we're bouncing back and forth to like the real world versus this one. She kind of comes out of it a little bit, but her attackers put her back in and she like remembers that and things like that. And some of her friends kind of come to her rescue, but it was a really trippy book about like what would happen if you wake up in somebody else's skin and somebody else's life, but you remember everything from your previous one. I thought the execution was really good from that perspective. So we have volume number 5, issue number 2, Mark Millar on this one. Not a bad book. Let me know if you've kept up with Magic Order through 5 volumes, and what do you think about this overall universe that Mark has put together? Let me know down below. Next up, we have a one-shot from the Hyde Street universe, Devour. So this was an interesting book because it plays off of the Hyde Street series that has come out just a few weeks ago, I believe. And it's kind of like set the stage to be a really interesting thing. We're going to be exploring these different like demons in the real world and how they interact with people, how they kind of curse people or whatever it is, what their body counts are. We got a big hint of that in the previous issue of Hyde Street. Really, really cool. So in Devour, we're actually focusing on this family. They have like this generational trauma with like body image, right? Like they're never thin enough. They're working out. They're trying to do their best. They're on like the standard American diet. One of the girls is trying to fit inside of her wedding dress and she can't quite do it. She's trying to diet the traditional way, limiting carbs and things like that, working out, just wearing herself out, but she's not getting the results she needs. Some of her family members, like her mother and her grandmother, I believe, they've kind of taken some shortcuts. They met this demon character on Hyde Street who gave him this medicine, or gave him this protein powder or whatever it might be, and it's supposed to help with weight loss. They are skin and bone. It works great for them, but they've developed this like almost like resentment towards her for not also partaking in this, and they're criticizing her in a way like you'll never be enough, you're way too much, all this stuff. So there's all this trauma and reinforcement of like bad ideas onto this girl, leading her into bad decisions over time because she's becoming desperate as her wedding day approaches. So this book is all about generational trauma as it relates to like body image and body dysmorphia, things like that. And yeah, it was pretty impactful. It really hits on that through the entire issue. Like every single panel, every page is about that. So when you get to the end, it's a little bit like, man, we get it, but like that's exactly how this would play out. And of course, there's a horror element twist on this that I haven't told you guys yet. So it was pretty cool. It's very creepy. The art's very creepy in particular. And then on top of that, the overall story is just like, it just makes you feel bad. You know what I mean? So Devour, one shot from the Hyde Street universe. Well worth it. Let me know if you guys read it. Next up from Jeff Johns, Brian Hitch, Redcoat issue number 7. This is a perfect like end cap to the first arc of Redcoat. Now, if you read the first arc of Redcoat, you know that our main character here, the Redcoat, he actually teams up with a young Albert Einstein. They go on some crazy adventures against some cultists. They're trying to learn more about Redcoat's immortality, and it leads to them all kinds of adventures, right? Well, this book kind of picks up and they continue those adventures a little bit, but it's a gigantic time jump. We are flashing forward very quickly, I think, to get Redcoat kind of caught up somewhat to the modern time so he can interact with additional characters. But we have an old man Einstein inside this book, pretty much at his deathbed, and they have some really cool conversations. And Redcoat really kind of, tries to sell the idea that he went on all these adventures and things like that, and Albert's just soaking it all in. Of course, he's been through his journey, as we all know, in history as well. So the two of them coexisting in the same world is really something cool, and I'm glad they tackled it in this book. But again, this is all about the relationship between these two characters. Einstein grows up almost considering him as like a son, and so that was a really cool perspective. And now he's aging out, he's about to pass on, and Redcoat is as old as he was when they first met, essentially, and he has to deal with all that, right? That eventually losing like a father figure, and what does that mean to him? So really cool ideas inside this book, and I love the execution of it. This is an issue that I didn't know I needed. It's full of emotion. I really enjoyed it a lot. Of course, the art is spectacular. Brian Hitch is on this one, so of course it's going to be great. Yeah, Redcoat, issue number 7. It's the issue I didn't know I needed. Absolutely loved it. Let me know if you read it. Next up from Image Comics, we have Kaya issue number 22. What a spectacular issue this was. Every time a Kaya issue comes out, I really look forward to it. I save it towards the end because it's just so spectacular. The only downside is this book reads so fast. If you have not read Kaya yet, you can literally sit down and probably catch up in an afternoon because there's lots of action in here, sometimes very little dialogue, but when there is dialogue, it's impactful, it's meaningful, it adds richness to the story. The character relationships are really fun as well, so like none of that is boring at all, but there's so much action inside the series. It reads so quick, and that's like my only downside for this run in general, but a trade read would be spectacular, so definitely do that. So in this issue, we're still trying to figure out some of our powers right now. Jin was actually abducted by some of the robots and whatnot. Kaya was kind of betrayed, we thought in the previous issue, from this mysterious guy who seems to know everything about them. I'll let you dig into that. But this is Kaya's like awakening a little bit and trying to get back on the road to saving her brother. And like I said, robots have her brother and they are on the run right now. And he's trying to develop his power set a little bit more as well. Jin is not completely useless. He's trying to tap into that energy. He's done it before in the past. He needs to do it in times of crisis like this. And we get to see exactly what he comes up with in here. And we get some reuniting of our heroes, which is really exciting because, again, there's lots of drama between these characters that we're going to be exploring some more. So like I said, full of action in here. Wes Craig and Wordy are doing a brilliant job inside this book, so I can't recommend this book enough for you. You really got to check it out if you haven't yet. Spectacular art and everything. Issue number 22. It was a great read. Let me know if you read it down below. Let's wrap it up with Savage Sword of Conan issue number 5. We have Aaron on this one, Jason Aaron, and we have Escherwood as well. This is a spectacular read. We got some cool pinups too from Tim Sale and everything from like 2005. Spectacular stuff inside this book. Extra sized, we have black and white art, of course, and this is actually a really cool story about this cave that was kind of haunted by something, some kind of a demon. It's going through the story of like the first person went in there, never heard from him again. The second person went in there, nothing but screams for days or whatever. And then when they were never heard of, or a body was found, or people went insane. And of course, Conan is going in there head first to see what the heck is going on. He comes across a witch, and this witch is actually on the run right now from like this cult that's wiping all of them out. Of course, times being as they are, people are blaming witches for all kinds of things. They just want a scapegoat, essentially. And eventually Conan kind of comes to his senses and comes to her rescue, but like, can she truly be trusted or something, you know? And so it's really cool to see that dynamic play out because nobody trusts each other in this time. And it's just really cool to see what happens. The artwork, the black and white artwork, is incredible, like you always see. So incredible job all around, I would say. The story is extra long. I think some of these books are a little more equal in page length for the stories. This one is mostly the Aaron run. Now we have some Zub and De La Torre stuff as well, but it's like a 2-page, just fun comic that has Conan in it. Then the last story is about a young Conan learning to be a blacksmith, learning some of those life lessons, and learning a little bit more about his father at the same time. So really, really cool book. Great pinups in this stuff. Man, Savage Sword is like some of the best bang for your buck. Definitely check it out. Read Blackstone as well, and you got to read the regular Conan run. All of them are spectacular. Let me know if you're reading it though down below. All right, guys, that's all I read this week. I hope you enjoyed that. Let me know what you read down below and what your favorite books of the week were. While you're down there, like, subscribe, share, hit that bell notification to be alerted whenever I put out new videos. Thank you again for watching. We'll see you in the comments.